Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are going over the new tropical outlook from the National Hurricane Center in both the Atlantic and Eastern Pacific, as well as the severe weather outlooks as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. And yes, I did fix my microphone. So we will be making videos more often here. So let's go ahead and get started. So first, we're going to be taking a look at the Atlantic side, where we actually have a 60% chance of development region. And this tropical disturbance has been going on for about a week, but it actually was bumped up to a 20% chance of development in the next 48 hours as well. So, with that, let's take a look at the satellite on it. And it's not too organized currently, but it will get more organized as it moves into the Gulf of Mexico. So let's go ahead and look at some of the models for this system. So starting off here, the GFS model, we're going to start this off around 8 p.m. today, and this is August 1st as of the recording of this video. So let's go ahead and get started. We can see our tropical wave in this large green area with that low pressure, about 10 millibars. So it does start to get more organization, and then it actually gets into the Gulf of Mexico and forms into a tropical storm and might be able to make it to hurricane status as it makes a landfall in portions of the Florida Panhandle where it connects with the peninsula. And then it stays as a tropical storm as it moves over portions of Georgia, then gets back out over the coast, strengthens into a hurricane, possibly a Category 3, and makes another landfall in Jacksonville, Florida, and cruises over the Florida Panhandle, tries to get back over the Gulf of Mexico, might be able to strengthen a little bit, and then makes another, I guess you could say, landfall in portions of Mississippi. And then this moisture just still stays around. But this scenario is not as likely, but we will be looking at multiple scenarios. But the reason that our system would actually make those other landfalls is because we actually got a trough that digs down that is going to uh, hold this system and stall it out. But this trough is moving like that. So it's going to bring this system over here a little bit, but then it actually, we lose that trough, but we get another one in, and then that's going to actually push it backwards again from where it had been, and that's why it will move back over portions of Georgia and Florida if this happens. So let's take a look at the European model now. This is starting off today around 2 p.m. And here is our system. It's kind of hard to see if you don't know what you're looking at, but it's this big green blob over portions of the Caribbean. And then we will keep this model moving, and it gets over portions of Cuba, and then it eventually pops off that low pressure here over portions of Cuba, and it does get into the Gulf of Mexico, but this model really isn't showing it do too much. So let's take a look at one of our other model runs of the European that can go out longer, and it's really just doesn't develop it much, but it does keep this moisture around and does stall, but it doesn't really do too much. So that would be good, but honestly, it's not going to be able to not develop. If this moves into the Gulf of Mexico, it will develop at least somewhat, even if there was a certain amount of dry air over that system. So let's take a look at the Canadian model here, starting off around 8 a.m. August 1st, which is today. And here is our system over portions of Cuba, and this does pop off that L, and then does get into the Gulf of Mexico, develops into a tropical storm, and honestly, the Canadian kind of looks more like a lower end hurricane, but I do believe this would still just be a strong tropical storm as it then rides over portions of Georgia and the Carolinas, and then it does eventually get back out over the water and tries to develop some more, but it does look like we have a certain amount of dry air that gets into the system, so it's not able to fully redevelop here off portions of New Jersey and Delaware. Let's take a look at the Eastern Pacific. We have 3 systems actually. The first one has a 90% chance of development in the next 7 days. And then the other system has a 20% chance of development in the next 7 days. And then we actually have a tropical storm. This is Tropical Storm Carlotta, excuse me. And this has wind gusts to 60 miles an hour. And let's take a closer look at this. It has a fairly small wind field right there in that orange color, but it is supposed to strengthen into a hurricane by later today, and then continue to strengthen as it moves to the west, and then it is supposed to eventually weaken back down to tropical storm status. Let's take a look at our current alerts, warnings, advisories, and watches. We have a large area of heat advisories and excessive heat warnings in the southeast. So all the way along the southeast coastline is actually under a heat advisory. So almost all of Georgia, all of Florida, all of Mississippi, and all of South Carolina is under a heat advisory. And then we have those excessive heat warnings in Mississippi, Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma as well. Let's take a look at our day 1 severe weather risk. We have a slight risk. This does include Cincinnati, Ohio, and we have a 2% tornado risk actually in this area, and that also includes Cincinnati, Ohio. But then we have another smaller 2% tornado risk that does include Milwaukee. And then we have a 15% wind risk, and then a 5% hail risk. But I do want to mention this marginal risk expands all the way from portions of New Mexico and, this extends from portions of New Mexico all the way from Colorado. This extends from Colorado and New Mexico all the way to portions of Georgia and the Carolinas as well. And that does include that 5% wind risk and a 5% hail risk that extends all the way down to portions of South Carolina. And then we have a day 2 marginal risk in the southeast. This does include portions of Georgia and the Carolinas as well as Kentucky and Ohio. And then a very small marginal risk that does include Tucson, Arizona. And we have a less than 2% tornado risk, but we still cannot rule out a possible tornado. And then we have a 5% wind risk in both areas, and then a less than 5% hail risk in both those areas, but still could have some very small hail in some of those stronger storms. And then we have a day 3 marginal risk, once again in portions of the southeast that does extend all the way up the east coast. Then we have another one in portions of the Dakotas and portions of Minnesota. And as of now, these are just a 5% risk of severe weather, but I could see a small 2% tornado risk possibly in portions of the southeast. That is not a good circle, but in portions of Virginia and possibly even Maryland as well. So with that, thank you for watching. Please make sure to tune back in for more videos, and make sure to like and subscribe if this video was helpful to you in any way. And also, we fixed the mic, so let's go ahead and get that a applause. It definitely took a few days, but I should be making videos regularly now. So thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Have a good one, everybody.